Today we're going to talk about the most important dynamic plugin in your entire mix. This is the mix bus compression. So mix bus compression is incredibly important because outside of the static mix of just the instruments themselves, this provides the entire foundation and groove of your song dynamically. It's incredibly important to get this right. You also have a ton of freedom with this as well. Depending on the song you have, you may want to use different styles of compression on your mix bus to emphasize a certain type of groove or a certain just dynamic foundation for your song. Part of this series that I'm doing, I also created 2 different guides for you to help you out as you're moving forward in your journey of mixing systematically. So the first one is going to be an EQ guide, which gives you all of the basic understanding of where the areas of interest when you're EQing each and every single instrument. This is just a guideline, but it also gives you some tools that you can use to understand what's actually wrong with your instruments and your tracks as you're diving into EQing various instruments. And then the second guide is a guide on compression. This is basically a 101 guide on what compression is and how to use it effectively. It goes through the 4 styles of compression so that you can understand exactly what I'm talking about throughout this series. So make sure you pick up both of those guides. You can find the link right below this video, or you can go to mastering.dinosaurdogstudio.com. I'm going to go over a couple of different options that you have when doing your mix bus compression right now. So let's go to the actual tutorial. So now that we're done with our static mix, we are now ready for the first real processing in our mix, which is the mix bus compression. I do like to start with compression rather than EQ on the mix bus, just because I want my mix to be hitting my equalizer kind of at a steady, more controlled level, if you will. I think it makes more sense when we get into the rest of the mix to do our compression first, because we may be adjusting EQ based on dynamic changes rather than actual frequency balance. Just to follow the same pattern, I like to start with compression on the mix bus. Okay, so now we're ready to start actually compressing here. I'm going to demonstrate 3 different styles of compression that we could potentially use on the mix bus. I'll let you decide on what you want to do for your mix, but just for the sake of examples and seeing various approaches to compressing on the mix bus, here are some options that you could do. So the first one I'm going to do is a groovy type compression, and that is really going to try to enhance whatever groove is already present in the dynamics of the song. Because this is a pretty driving, just quarter note, steady beat, it's going to be a pretty obvious and pretty easy to actually implement this groovy type compression. The goal of groovy type compression is to enhance the groove that's already there. Because this is a very steady quarter note beat, we can then enhance each of the transients on those quarter notes and then increase the, not punchiness of the mix as a whole, but just increase the feel of that movement. So that's really what we're after with our groovy type compression. So the way I'm going to start is just to try to identify the peaks or the transients inside of the mix as a whole. And so I'm going to turn up my ratio all the way, turn my attack and release to as fast as it will go. Then I'm going to slowly turn my threshold until I see the needle really peaking at those transients, but I don't want it to stay down. I want it to return all the way back to 0. That way I know that I'm only capturing the transients and not really the valleys in between the transients. I just want to know where that limit is, so then I know whether I'm digging into the valleys or not. As you can tell, it's really swinging right back there. If I dig a little bit deeper, it's starting to stay down. It's not returning all the way back to 0, so that's exactly where I want it to be. The ratio I'm going to start with is 4. Generally, 4 is a good ratio to have on your mix bus. I'll use that 85% of the time. And then, as we stated before, our attack is going to be slower because we want to keep the transients the way they are and allow them to pass through without being compressed. But we want to then dig down into the valleys really quick, but then also have a very fast release. So it's really only enhancing the transients. It's not really digging too much into the valleys and making it punchy. Let's begin here. Okay, so that sounds pretty good to me. As you notice, when I turn it faster, it really loses that energy on that quarter note beat. So it's definitely not what we want to do. And then I'm going to adjust my release. It's already pretty fast, but I don't think I want it quite that fast. So what I want to do is I want to be able to feel that groove when I'm adjusting this release. You're not going to be able to hear groovy type compression too much. It's really more of just a feeling that you'll be able to get when you turn this compression on. Okay, so you should really be able to feel that groove this is adding to that. So that's one option. That is one of my go-to styles of compression on the mix bus, just because it really just does enhance whatever is already going on inside of the mix for most styles of music. That's definitely one option. The next option I'm going to show you is a punchy type compression. So it's similar to the groovy type compression, where we want to allow transients to pass through, but we do want to actually start to crush the tail a little bit. So we really just want to make all of those transients hit really hard comparatively to the tails of the notes. The same kind of setup, because I already know exactly where the threshold should start at. I'm gonna just move it there. The ratio again is gonna be around 4. And then we're gonna have a slower attack, faster release. So I'm gonna set the release as fast as possible, nail in my attack, and then I'll move on to the release. Okay, so that's sounding pretty punchy to me. Again, our goal is for the release is to get it basically all the way back until the next transient hits. And because this song is a very steady rhythm, it's very easy to do that. For songs that have a little less steady rhythm, sometimes I'll use the auto release to try to nail down the groove a little bit more. Most compressors have a pretty good auto release that I wouldn't be afraid of using. The last thing to do is gain stage this to make sure we're still having the same gain out as in, and then we will go on to our third type of compression that you have as an option.
These
So you can really feel how much heavier that kick drum really is when we're having this type of compression on. So I'll A-B it again for you just so you can hear that, but really focus on how heavy it feels after this compression is added. So here's without. And here's with. That's punchy type compression. This sounds a little bit extreme to me for this song, honestly. I probably won't use this one, but that is definitely an option if you really wanted just a really powerful punchy mix. One thing to be aware of is that it does tend to increase the level of the transients, which is the goal of the type of compression, but you'll run into issues of peaking on your bus. So you just maybe watch out for that and control a little bit more dynamics inside of the mix rather than on your mix bus if you're going to use the punchy type compression. The last type of compression is going to be thickness type compression. So if you just want a really loud mix, then this is probably the style of compression that I would go for on the mix bus, or a combination of maybe this type of compression along with another one. But this is going to be a very fast attack, very fast release, and it's intended to bring up the level of the valleys, so not the transients, but the valleys, to really just make the overall mix louder. So this is exactly the opposite of what we just did with the punchy type compression with a slower attack and slower release. This is going to be fast attack, fast release, capturing those transients, taming them, but then bringing up the level of the valleys in between the tails of the notes. I'm gonna set my threshold to where I know that where it's peaking. Ratio again, I'm gonna start with 4. I might change it again, but we'll see. Generally, even though it is fast attack, fast release, I'll probably won't set this all the way to the fastest setting possible because I want some of the character of those transients to come through. For this type of song, I really don't think that this is the style of compression that I'm really going for, but just for the sake of being able to demonstrate it, here it is. So really what I'm looking for is just to get enough attack in there, or slow enough attack, that it's going to allow the character of the transients to pass through. If it's sounding a little bit muffled, then that means you have too fast of an attack. So you want to be careful with this because you can really just destroy your mix using this type of compression. So use it with caution. Now you can actually hear this type of compression working. When I enable it, it just sounds louder, and that's because it's bringing up those tails of the notes. So you may be tempted to use this when you shouldn't, just because it does make it louder, and inherently we like things loud. As humans, it tricks our brains into thinking that something sounds better when it's louder. Well, that's not actually true. This is very tempting to use sometimes just because it does trick ourselves into making it think it sounds better. The other thing to notice too is that it does tame those peaks, and so the peak volume that I have down here on my mix bus is actually a lot lower with this type of compression than any of the other ones that I demonstrated. That is a benefit of thickness type compression. You can help tame some of those transients so you have less of an issue on your mix bus and peaking. Sometimes you you can get away with using a combination of these. So maybe I'll use a groovy type compression and the thickness type compression so that I can have some of that groove, but then also bring up the level and also tame some of those transients that may be getting through that are peaking on my mix bus. Here, let's just do a quick review. This is going to be the groovy type compression that I have here. So this one's groovy, this one's the punchy type compression, this one's the thickness type compression. So let's start with nothing, and then I'll enable one by one so you can hear what the difference is. Personally, I really like the groovy type compression, especially for this song. And another note, all of these types of compression that I'm using and the way that I set them up is a little bit more aggressive than I probably would. I'm probably gonna back this off. I think I have some issues with how much gain I'm getting into my mix bus to begin with, so I'm probably just gonna cut all of these tracks down a little bit just to make sure I'm not having too much gain going in. I normally aim for around 2 decibels of gain reduction. I have about 3 right now, so I might back that off a little bit. This is really just to give the track character. It's really not meant to fix any core issues inside of the mix. I'm not really too concerned about that right now because as I mix the rest of the tracks and provide processing, it's gonna tame a lot of the dynamics. So likely what's actually going into my mix bus is actually going to be a lot less. And so this compressor is going to work a lot less hard to actually keep up with what's happening in the song. And choose your mix bus compression based on what song you have, not based on any other random factor of what you think you should or should not do. Your song is unique and you should be able to choose what type of compression you're using on the mix bus for your specific song. With that said, I will see you in the next video, which is going to be going over the actual EQ on the mix bus itself.